Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive! This week I continue my series on the Archons and Death Angels in Kult, Divinity Lost. This week I look at Chokmah, the Archon of Submission, and Chagidiel, the Death Angel of Abuse. How are these two the reflections of each other? We will take a look. Sit back, relax, and enjoy as I talk about these two. Ostensibly, Chokmah is submission for his principle. And most people think of submission as submitting to a person above you, or submitting to a dominant personality, or something like that. In this case, however, that's not what Chokmah deals with. That's not the form of submission Chokmah deals with. Chokmah deals specifically with religious submission. The submit yourself to the will of God type submission. You could also look at it as faith. The trusting in a higher power that knows what's right for you, etc., etc. But ultimately, you're dealing with an entity that's looking at people kneeling in the church, submitting, bending themselves in a way that they do not believe that anything is their will. And that is where Chokmah deals. The examples they give are the preachers with the fire and brimstone sermons, scaring people into falling in line. And Chokmah's greatest strength was in the Middle Ages, and after that, Chokmah was severely weakened. This is, of course, because the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, all those things, they took the emphasis away from religion, which is where Chokmah lived. Chokmah's servants were all in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, or in the different religious institutions around the world. And once the emphasis on those fell away, Chokmah was weakened. And Chokmah sort of disappeared. But rumors are now circulating that his pilgrims have begun going to his tower in Metropolis, his citadel in Metropolis. That his few remaining servants are getting more active. And maybe Chokmah has returned to his citadel. No one's entirely sure. But what is known is that something is happening. Something is causing a resurgence in Chokmah's power. You can kind of look around and see what could be causing this in the real world. But that's sort of neither here nor there. Because this is a easily misunderstood Archon. As I said, it's easy to mistake Chokmah as faith and not submission. Of course, this segues perfectly into how the death angel Chagidiel is the dark reflection. Chagidiel is the death angel whose principle is abuse. And this is a little difficult for me to talk about. You see, his power, his main strength, is the traditional nuclear family. You know, the mother who belittles the son or daughter. The father who beats the son for some slight indiscretion or slight infraction of some rule. The uncle who molests the pretty little niece or the handsome little nephew. As you see, you can see the roots, the reflection of submission twisted here. For these are people who should be trusted, should be looked up to. And they abuse that trust. They abuse that authority. But it's more than that. The actions of the cycle, the so-called cycle of abuse, that's because the principle of abuse takes hold. And the abused will, when they find themselves in the same situation, will become the abusers. Because that principle is the only thing they know. It has dominated their lives. Both the abused and the abuser fuel Chagidiel. But it's far more than just the nuclear family nowadays. You have the organized networks of certain things that we cannot talk about. You've got books devoted to child discipline that are essentially nothing more than handbooks on how to psychologically and emotionally and maybe physically abuse a child. You have all these things out there. You know those Facebook posts where a parent humiliates a child for doing something wrong? That is Chagidiel. That's Chagidiel feeding off that. And this is all the dark side. This is the dark reflection of what it means to submit. Because, again, in all these cases, it's someone of higher authority making the person submit to them. You'll do what I say or I'll beat you type response. And of course, this even works its way into the religious institutions. The psychological abuse of certain church groups. The sexual abuse in certain religious communities or certain religious groups keeping under wraps. This is what we deal with. This is how Chagidiel works his way in. And this, again, reinforces the lie. While the lie is reinforced by Chokmah by making people not question anything, Chagidiel makes people afraid to question. Because where those questions comes punishment, comes abuse. And at the same time, there's the cowing them into submission, cowing people into not wanting to look beyond what is, making them fixate on the abuse that they suffered, trying to recover from it, or not caring about it and perpetuating that cycle. And that is this week's Archon and Death Angel. Next week, I'm going to talk about the Archon Bina and the Death Angel Cethariel. Until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.